It's impossible to talk about Somaliland, its culture and history without somehow referring to that noble animal, the camel. It is entwined in our history, our identity, our culture, but in fact it is very relevant to this whole question of mineral exploration. And I'll tell you why. If you look through the history of Somaliland, and in fact human history, the camel has been one of the foundations before the Industrial Revolution of transportation and connection for humanity. They travel the deserts, they're described as the ships of the deserts. They carry people's hopes, their belongings, their families, everything. But the camel does not realize what it carries on its back. People's possessions, its treasure, the silk, the spices, and yes, even the gold, whether it's in Arabia or even across the Australian outback. The camel has carried people, their belongings, and their trade. And in many ways, that's where Somaliland finds itself. The camel is resilient. It survives things that very few other creatures that God has created can survive. It can go without water. It feeds the people whose materials it is carrying with milk, but it doesn't know the wealth it's carrying on its back. And in some ways, that's kind of symbolic of Somaliland. Until this moment, Somaliland has been concerned so much with survival, with resilience, that it hasn't really begun to sort of explore the treasure that it carries on our back. So this is the connection between the camel and Somaliland's mineral wealth. And just, I mean, if you consider Australia has one of the largest iron ore, richest reserves, but before railroads were built and before trains and supertankers were built to carry this, it was the camel, which is why after Somaliland, Australia has the largest population of camels in the world, because when the railroads were built, the government decided that these camels should be gotten rid of, they should be shot, but instead the farmers let the camels go into the outback, and now they have 17 million or 20 million camels in Australia. So that's a fact for people they didn't know. But that's a moment which is changing here in Somaliland. I think all people here from all corners of the world, from academia, from investments, from infrastructure, from mining, we're gathering people from all over the world to consider this moment that Somaliland does realize the wealth it carries on its back, unlike the camel. And that's where we are. And the other thought I'd leave you with is that it's very, very rare. I'm a journalist. I've traveled to over 90 countries in the world, from Brazil to Bhutan, from the Czech Republic to Congo. But it is very, very rare, and I was trying to think about this. In fact, I'd say it's almost impossible to think of any other example in the world of a last frontier economy that has 4 key ingredients. 1 is the correct geological setting. 2 is a history of governance that allows the development and the cooperation between the private sector, bilateral institutions, and so forth. Security and development and democratic order, and an entrepreneurial spirit and free market opportunity. It's very, very rare. When people find huge reserves of certain minerals, it's a complicated political picture. It's dominated by conflict or upheaval. It's very rare to find all those 4 things where there's almost no exploration activity, governance and order, the right geological setting, and most importantly, a direct route to global markets through a world-class port only a few hundred kilometers down the road. So they say in history there is an inflection point where everything changes, and I think Somaliland is at that moment, and I think you'll discover in the next few days why this question of mineral exploration is that. So without further ado, I just want to leave you with those 2 thoughts as you consider everything that's going to be discussed in the next few days. So to start the proceedings, I'm honored to ask the Agasim Hagood Ahan, the Director General of the Ministry of Energy and Minerals, Shuaib Usman Mohammed, to come and say a few words for us.